Hello and welcome to our daily sketching routine. It is Saturday, May the 10th, 2025, and today's topic will be drawing the forms of the face. But before we begin, welcome back if you're returning, and welcome if you're new to the channel. I sketch and post every day, and I use a timer to stay focused and to build a habit. I'll start a 10-minute timer, and this video is a continuation of yesterday's video, which I will link in the description. So I'm calling this like a head model sheet, like a turnaround, and it's supposed to be kind of a base model, like kind of generic, so that you can create different characters. And I mean, like, that's what I'm going to use it for. You might want to continue with a pencil. So just to get warmed up, just use a pencil. So originally I used like an unsharpened like lead holder. You could use kind of a pencil, like a regular pencil, but this one you can get sketchier lines, and then you can go in and define, which is what we'll do today, which is define like the different forms. If you can draw it in pen, you do skip some steps, so there's that also. Yeah, just to kind of talk about like what this video will be. So I'm going to go through each one. So you have a front view, 3/4, profile, back view, basically a back view 3/4, and then another like 3/4, but closer to like the profile. So it's not meant to say that this is how you draw. I mean, you could draw it this way, and it's meant to be like an example. So yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and go in with a pen, but I'm going to use like a fine point so that I can go in with like a medium point, like a thicker line, to clean it up or like to kind of fix things. It should be okay because I'm going to approach it still sketchy, because it's not meant to be like a specific character. It's meant to be able to turn into like different characters. So I'll talk about like the different forms when you're doing like the front view. And a lot of this is just from experience, because I've done this like a lot. Just to begin, like inking, part of it is like the warm-up. One is that from the front view, and this is because I have pencil lines. I don't always have the pencil line, but like if you want it to be a little bit more precise, then that would help. I'll just kind of talk about like what I'm doing. So if you're still getting used to this, I would use these videos as kind of examples and ideas and like demonstrations, but like do your own sort of studies as far as, I mean, there's a ton of reference out there, like tutorials and reference images and stuff. So don't just take like my word for it, like check on it and stuff. But like this is meant to be, it's helpful for me, but it might be helpful for you also if you're interested. So you can see that like, this is like the proportions, the basic proportions. And I go over this a lot in the figure drawing. So this will be in the figure drawing playlist. So part of this is coming from anatomy, of course, because we're specifically drawing people. And this could be turned into male or female or like other characters. I'm not going to go over like all like the different proportions. I do have videos about that, and yeah, there are like there's already a lot of books and a lot of videos about it. But one thing, so I'll talk more about like the specifics of this. So yeah, if I'm kind of inking over like a pencil, and plus I'm specifically wanting it to be a model sheet, like a base model. So I'm going to kind of squint at it before I start to like erase it and stuff, because I'm going to eventually erase the pencil line. In some ways it's going to be kind of a diagram. So like this, I'm going to, like, the really important things is the proportion and like the forms, like I was saying. So for example, the forms, like the main things I want to know are like the actual forms, which the forms create like the shape, and the shapes, they come from light and dark. So let's say that this was all like brightly lit, then you wouldn't see shapes, or it would be like, it would look a certain way. And just kind of speaking of the lighting, yeah, I'm kind of outlining it because the light could go from different directions, and I need it to be able to do that. So part of it is the proportion itself is what's important, because there's a lot of stuff that makes the face look different. So I'm keeping that in mind. So for example, the main things I want to know are like just based upon this drawing here. Like where the neck, I talked about this in the character model sheet where they overlap is important, because everything else can either be left open or like drawn a certain way. Most of this is going to be self-explanatory. So yeah, I'm not trying to draw like specific features, but it's important to get the angles and the overlaps, because that's where the form, because forms, they have angles to them. So for example, and there's actually secondary forms. So the first thing was like the shape. That was yesterday's video. That's the shape of the head, which includes the proportions. I want to go through all of them and kind of go over like how the forms work in perspective. But yeah, I'm just going to stick with like a fine point for now. Just erase. I'm using a kneaded eraser to carefully get rid of this. These are like the main things if I'm tracing over, like, because the idea is that I can draw over this, but take it a step at a time though. Like the first thing is to just get through all of them. In this one, so yeah, here are the forms right here. Like you could just draw everything. That might be helpful. I mean, I've done that too. It's just whatever works for you. Sometimes if you have a ton of guidelines, then you might feel a little constricted by it, but like if you're still learning it, then it would be helpful. And in fact, I might like go back and add more guidelines. So what I mean by that is I could put more guidelines like on the face, like for the proportion and stuff like this. You could ink the guidelines. That might be helpful. I'm kind of inking it in a way that it shows me the guidelines. So as far as like the forms of the face, like in a 3/4, like this view right here, where you see this much of the face, you want to decide kind of this kind of thing, but like you would adjust it. And it also helps for like the style. Like this is the particular style, like I'm cartooning it. Another kind of important thing is like the lips, and it'll look different because of just the face, like the surface anatomy. But in this view, it would be good to understand the forms of like the lips. So use this as like an example, but like go look. So these are like the main kind of guidelines that I need. So yeah, it just depends on like what kind of guidelines you need. So for like the ears, so like I didn't sketch it in, but you might want to sketch that in. As far as like, I'll start with this one first. So this form is coming from the anatomy. Like this is the eye socket, which is made up of the bones, but I'm not going to necessarily draw that in. I might go back and like do that. So these are coming from the proportions, and I've gone over that and there's tutorials on that. So I didn't sketch in the ear, but I mainly need this one, like this. So that's like the basic form. So this is just meant to help me out, like when I'm wanting like a quick way to design like a character's face or something. So that's the basic look for 3/4. You can also check proportions with this. That's why I like using this printer paper. And yeah, if you're still learning it, I would do it in pencil and then just check reference. And then after a while, you'll like remember, like memorize. And also you'll have kind of the style of character that you want to do. So the profile view, let's see. So in a way, like these lines that I'm putting down, like they're the ones that can be adjusted. So they're giving me the proportions, but I also know that like all of these shapes can be adjusted when you're looking at like specific characters or faces. And yeah, like I said, I haven't specifically done a model sheet just like this. Usually what I'll do is I'll just do like a model sheet for a character that I'm designing, but then I thought like with the full body, it was really helpful. So I was like, okay. So I'm not really, this video isn't really about like specific anatomy. I've done videos on all of it, like the ear, the eyes and stuff. So that's the profile. As far as like this front view, you can also do the forms of the eyes. Again, this is meant as an example. Some of it is going towards like the way I draw. So for the back view, pretty simple. So yeah, you'll see that I can always go back and clean up the lines, but what I'm really wanting is the angles. So like the ears, for example, in this back view, kind of angles out and then it comes off of the head a little bit. And like the main thing is to get this where the forms overlap. So I'm not really trying to make it look pretty. That's for later. That's for like details. But it can still look good even in the kind of, when you're sketching it in, just make the lines be deliberate. Then just as an example real quick, I will erase some lines. So I don't really need like the box and all that. So if you are learning to draw faces, this is a really helpful exercise. Yeah, so for this view, this can look pretty different. I added these features because it's a lot of times you don't really see that, but like you can. It depends on like the face. So you'll have like so this is coming from like the bones of like the eye socket. So like the cheekbone, which is like the zygomatic or something. And it depends on, yeah, like how pronounced it is or like how lean the face is. Same with like the nose. Like sometimes you'll get the lashes, but again, this is meant to just be helpful. Sometimes the cheek, so that's coming from like the cheek. Sometimes it's just kind of a thicker line. But yeah, just observe. As far as like the forms, this may or may not pick up a line because it's just, remember that the line is just light and dark. So it just depends on how pronounced it is. Sometimes the neck right here will give you like the form just because of where it attaches. It looks a certain way. The ear can be a little tricky right here. I'm just going to keep it kind of simple. That's like the back. So I'm not going to do too much. I mean, ears are can be kind of weird looking anyway, honestly, if you like just stare. Like it never really looks that, like it's a peculiar kind of shape. A lot of times it's covered by hair or like light and dark and stuff. So there's that. So yeah, like with the jawline, you may not have a line right there. It might be helpful, for example, to put this. So for this final one, So this is similar to the other 3/4, but it'll look different. It'll look more like a profile. So for example, you'll have this, which is coming from like the bone of the nose right here, the bridge. But then this will look different depending on the brow, like how pronounced it is. For now, I'm just going to go like this. Like I'm not exaggerating. I'm keeping it kind of in the middle. Sometimes this will be very like slight because that's how far out like the brow is coming out. Sometimes, yeah, like it's very like slight. Sometimes it comes out even more. The lips, again, will look different. However, for my purposes, for like this angle, I'm not going to really show like the corner of the mouth because it's turning, because the mouth is like a cylindrical shape. It's not flat. So I'm just going to do this. But of course, that far part will look different, the like the cheek. Same with like underneath the lips. So the mouth itself, where it opens, isn't really like right in the middle. It's kind of up. So yeah, I don't necessarily want to add like too much detail, because even like this part, that's based upon the forms of the lips. So I'm just kind of putting it there, but it could look different. This can be tricky in a 3/4 view. So this is like the basic proportion right here. So you're going to get, that's being formed by this. This is the nose. That's like the form of the nose right there. Again, this is based upon how the bone structure of the brow, but then it's also like the eyebrows. And this corner right here, it represents the cheekbone form, and it looks different. It depends on how deep set the eyes are. It depends on like the surface, like the skin. So the ears have their own sort of anatomy. Like you've got I think this is the helix, and then the antihelix, I think, is the one that's like inside. But yeah, like ears look different, but this is the basic proportion. That's basically what I would need for like a quick proportions. But yeah, I mean, if you're learning it, like just take the time to learn it. Let's do the eyes real quick, because like we did it here, and then again you would adjust it. Same with like the brows, it just depends. So we did like the 3/4, it looks kind of like that. And yeah, it depends on how, it can be like a little bit further back, you know, whatever. As far as like the 3/4 view, it would be like figure out like where the inside corner. So for like that one, it's sort of behind the bridge of the nose a little bit. It depends on the shape of the nose, but it kind of has like this sort of look. Yeah, I'm keeping it basic enough to where I can change it up, but like it just gives me a quick sort of proportion. Like with this one, I'll go ahead and just kind of add the lash. You may not see that. Yeah, same with this. So if it's turning more, so compared to like that one, you see a little bit more of the eye. If it's turning more, then you would just make it look kind of like this, like it's turning around more, or turning away. Same, I find it easier to figure out where like the inside corner, and the more it turns into profile, the more it'll start having that triangular shape. And of course it all depends on the actual shape of the eye. So I would just erase and then see how many guidelines I actually need. You might need a lot more. Depends. This is meant to be something helpful for yourself to do. As far as like the pupils and stuff, yeah, like I wouldn't make it too big. So put the iris in, like right here. It's about like that much. So it's elliptical because of the profile, kind of like this. And then from the front view, the basic proportion is like this. That's like the iris, not the pupil. So the pupil will be in there and it can be adjusted, like the pupils dilate, but that's like the basic proportion for that. From like the side view, it's kind of, that's okay. And the pupils, like they go in. Alright, so I actually stopped recording and then I decided that I'm going to add this part. I'm going to edit this back in, and what I'll do is I'll go through each of the heads, add more of the forms, but a lot of it is just, it's best if I just kind of demonstrate it and maybe if I kind of think about it. So for example, it just depends on how detailed you need it to be. So like the forehead right here, like the hairline, this is meant to be a guide. That's like the main thing. Same with like the jaw. I'm keeping it kind of neutral. And now that I have the basic lines, I can be a little bit more loose with it. So as far as like the forms, if you want to, again, I don't want it to be too specific of a character, but these are some of like the smaller forms. Same with like the pupils. Like this can look different right here. The more detail you add, the more it starts to look too much like a character. Like that's my point. Then you have like the forms of the lips. So from this view, you've got this form. That can look different. Now some of these are like not that correct, but that's why you can go back and fix some things. Again, it also depends on like the style of the character. Like this works for like the characters that I'm drawing. The pupils are more elliptical. Same with this, that'll look different. Alright, just to wrap up this video, this is an example of how you can take like just one of the sketches and like turn it into different characters. And so it's helpful to just have the proportions so that you can just focus on like individual characters. But yeah, I can talk about that in tomorrow's video. That'll be it for today. I want to thank you for joining me for our daily sketching routine, and if you enjoy these videos, please support the channel. I appreciate it, and until next time, keep on sketching.